the darkness of my room, I sit alone, tears falling heavy, my heart turning stone. Thought we had a love like no other before, but now it's gone, shattered on the floor.
Thank you for joining us on Relationship and Convo with my special guest, JP Marsh. How you doing, sir?
It's pretty good. About yourself?
Good, good. Can't complain. You want to tell the audience a little about yourself?
Sure. I'm a 41-year-old single girl dad to a 9-year-old, and have been in a healthy co-parenting relationship with her mother for the last 5+ years. We split up 7 years ago, a little over 7 years ago, and obviously there was pretty high conflict at the beginning, and then that smoothed out with different, mental shifts, perspective kind of stuff. And then now I work with people and kind of help people get to the same place, because more times than not, everybody I run into that's in a relationship like this, the thing that they always say is, man, I wish I could be in that. I wish we could be like you guys, because we do the barbecues in the summertime all together, and we do the school, sit by each other at the school stuff and the sports stuff. And it's, and my daughter's in a blended family now. And so it's not just me and her mother that are interacting and being around each other. It's me, her mother, her husband, his son, his ex-wife, her husband, and their baby also. So we'll, everybody, on certain holidays, the Easters, the Thanksgivings, and those kinds of things, it's no big deal for us all to be together.
Oh, okay. So you part of the blended family?
She is. My daughter's mother has a husband, and so my daughter's got a stepbrother, and on that end, I don't have a blended,
So you don't interact with them only because I heard you say the other people, husband and wife, and they knew husband and wife is involved with that too. So I figured that
right.
So you only one left out of that?
No, we all do it together. I'm just the only one that's single.
Okay, I got you. How do that make you feel? Being the only one at the group that's still single.
I don't mind it really, because to an extent, it's, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I would rather be alone than be in a subpar relationship, but also I'm not lonely. Like, it's not really something that I need to have, that attachment with somebody, you know what I mean? But also, we live in an area, like, it's a super rural area that I live in. I live in a town of 6,000 people. So, like, it's not a dating pool with like a big metropolitan city either. You know what I mean?
So you got to go to the city to meet somebody on an app or something like that.
Yeah, if there was even a city around. I mean, there's a town of 30,000 people 40 miles away, and that's about it for, a 150-mile radius.
Okay. So why did you and your wife split up originally? Was it due to infidelity?
No, there wasn't any one real factor. When my daughter was born, a lot of my priorities and things that I found important, and those kinds of things shifted, which caused some conflict because the relationship dynamic kind of changed, but also it just wasn't a happy place. You know what I mean? We were arguing all the time over, petty little things that just didn't even really need to be big arguments, and little by little, it was just an unhappy place. And so I had to make a choice whether or not I was going to stay or make the decision to, go before my daughter became, 8, 10 years old and would start blaming herself, thinking it was her fault and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yes. Like when people say single, like sometimes people automatically think somebody that's very, like you said, lonely or something like that. But that don't mean that. Like I'm a single person, but I still date. I still sleep with women.
Right.
I just might be picky and choosy of who those women are.
Right.
Is it for you?
Yeah. I mean, I was dating a woman here up until, 3-4 months ago, and we were dating for about a year and a half or something like that.
Mm.
But it was, you get into it's, it's hard to. She had 2 kids. I have my daughter. She lived in a town the next couple towns over, so it was a half hour, 45-minute drive to get from either my place to her place. Plus, my day job is I work in construction, so there's times where I'm 80 miles on the other side of my town, 100 miles away. And so it was but she had her boys full time. And so it was kind of a deal where we did our best to, make time and this and that. And then it just got to a point where it wasn't progressing. So I just had to, sort of have, I've gotten better about communicating my needs, my goals. If this is all that this is going to be, then let's just end it. Because if it's not progressing, then I don't want to be stuck in it. I don't want to be in limbo, you know what I mean? And just kind of see you every couple of weeks or see you once a week, especially after we've been dating for this long. Like, so kind of put it in her court, and she was like, well, right, wrong, or indifferent. Like, there was some other stuff going on, on her side with her kids and her ex and that kind of stuff. So it just wasn't going to be a deal where she was going to be able to kind of move forward. But also, there was some stuff. She was married pretty soon out of high school, was married to her husband for 22 years, got divorced. And then I met her like a year and a half later. So there was still quite a bit of healing, baggage, trauma type stuff that she was still trying to kind of go through, so it was what it was.
I understand. Some people just need closure. That's all. Have you ever been cheated on? And if you did, how did it affect your views on relationships?
Yeah. A long time ago. I was in my early 20s, and I worked graveyard at a place. And I had a house, and my girl lived with me, and then I found out that like there was other people going to my house after I went to work, working night. And it was rough. It was a lot to deal with. You know what I mean? Like, no, but one of the guys that worked on the shift before me caught her. And so he told me about it the next night. So then I went, I took off of work, went back home, confronted her. And then it became this, all this stuff. But it was rough. I'm not gonna lie about that. But I grew up in in that time, I was sort of going through a lot of that, numbing myself with drugs and alcohol, self-sabotage, like grew up in an environment that wasn't really conducive to a loving sort of thing. And so like internally, I didn't feel like I deserved love. And then that was really just a kick in the gut, because I thought that I had found somebody that I could trust, and turned out not to be the case. You know what I mean?
In a small town like yours, do that happen often? Like people sleeping around and cheating?
I don't, it's hard to say, but I would guess that it's a little bit harder in a smaller community where everybody sort of knows each other, and everybody, it's not a big city where public transportation or the Uber's not really around here. You're not taking rigs. If you're messing around on the side, people are going to see your rig at their house, or they're going to see you at the one or the half dozen places that you can go out and drink or have dinner in this town. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit harder to sort of, go to the other side of the city or persona or act like you're a completely different person than you are. You know what I mean?
The city is not no different, especially if you live in like a project neighborhood. So if you got 15 buildings surrounding each other, eventually somebody's gonna wander in one of these buildings because you're meeting people, stuff like that. I lived in a building once. It was the projects, and building I lived in a building across the street had a pandemic. All right, I
Yeah.
was explain the pandemic to you, okay? All right. So I'm gonna say about floors, all right? And then you catch on, you got any questions, let me know, okay? All right. So they all started on the fourth floor, okay? The fourth floor. And a guy, we gonna call him P, okay? P slept with T, okay? So P slept with T. So T baby father finds out, and so he sleeps with P baby mother. So these two couples basically slept with each other, with others, right?
Right.
But P also slept with the girl on the second floor, all right? And her baby father lives on the third floor, all right? All right, and all this is across the street in one building. Her baby father lives on the third floor, okay? So he don't only sleep with that baby mother. He slept with his other baby mother too on the same day. So he slept with both his two baby mothers. So P up right now. He very up right now. So he slept with them, right? So the girl on the second floor slept with a guy that lived in my building.
Right.
Then he slept with another girl. They all had the same STD for about 7 days.
Yeah.
All had the same STD, and they all said they got it from P because he started the cycle.
He started it. Right.
Yes.
Right. He was patient zero.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I guess the only real difference, it's outside of a little bit of, the societal norms or cultural norms, or, like the way that it's perceived in a big metropolitan area compared to like a smaller spread out farming area. Here it's a because there isn't really big apartment buildings, you know what I mean, or condo type buildings. And so you're not it's a different cultural of community, I guess, because you see people at the kids' soccer games or at the fair or at these outings, but you're not passing by hundreds of people going in and out of a building. And so you don't have that high, neighbor, your neighbors, the people that live, there's 6 houses on my block. And so there's, 6 families that are, in this little area. So, like all your neighbors more or less, but you're not passing probably the same volume of people day in and day out walking in and out of buildings, up and down the hallways. So maybe that's a little bit, if you were to go, but I mean, that's, I mean, it's kind of funny though. But one of the things, like I don't, I drank really hard years ago, and then now I don't really drink hardly ever, special occasions, every once in a while I have a couple drinks or something like that. But I know that like those kinds of situations, so here it's more of, because I haven't lived in the town that I currently live in for, I've lived here for like 3 years. I sort of don't go out to like the bars and stuff, because I don't really know who is who and who is married to who and what farmer's wife and generations of, people that have lived here forever. And so it's an actual worry of mine that like if I did, and then you go home with some gal and then find out that she's married, but her husband and all of them are from here. So now you got like a dozen farmers and people that, all these family members and all these people that got it out for you all of a sudden or hate you. And you didn't even know that she was married. You know what I mean? Because he was out of town or just didn't go out or with her, that, whatever the case may be. And I just don't even want to deal with that. That just doesn't sound like something I want to be a part of. So I'm just like,
Yes. I see videos all the time online where like people, the wife will go to a bar and they catch their husband with a woman, but the woman
Mhm.
is known for sleeping with everybody's husband. Do that happen a
Yeah.
lot out there?
There it does. In the same sort of a town that I grew up in, you know, and lived up until I was, you know, 38. Uh, there was a buddy of mine that was, you know, 5, 6 years older than me, but he was a bartender at
Mm-hmm.
like one of the only, you know, half a dozen places that you could go and drink after 9, 10 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And it was he ran into that a lot because when the husbands would be out of town, the wives would always go to the bar and flirt with him all night and try to take him home. And
Mm-hmm.
they knew that he would go home with it just about anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And so half the time he didn't even know they were married, but they knew they were married, and they knew that they could seek him out and it would work. You know what I mean? And then he always had these husbands and stuff kind of chasing him around, you know. And so it's just like, man, I don't want to deal with that. And you know, you get out here and it gets a bit weird with the, you know, the Midwestern, hardworking blue collar sort of mentality is kind of a little different in
Mm-hmm.
spots, but you get the borderline sort of abusive relationships where the guy makes a lot of money doing the hard blue collar oil field farming type job, and then that gives him the perceived perception that he can do whatever he wants, because where's his old lady going to go if she doesn't have, you know, has all the money that she needs to spend, and doesn't have to work, and all she's got to do is sit at home and raise the kids. And so they kind of feel like they got him under their thumb. And then, yeah, you get a lot of those guys running around and doing a bunch of stuff that, you know, you wouldn't consider a healthy relationship by any means, you know. But in a lot of those cases too, they don't even try to hide it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, like you said, they're at the bar, and the wife just walks in, and then everybody gets a show for the night because
Yeah.
it's a big blow up, you know?
How did your experience with addiction and recovery shape your perspective on mental health?
My, all of my drinking and numbing and all of that stuff was due to mental health,
Mm-hmm.
stuff that I didn't want to deal with or really want to face. Because as far as the drinking and numbing myself, once I started working on myself and changing my internal dialogue and the way that I felt about myself and like the value that I put on my worth, that stuff just went away. Because I didn't necessarily have to, like, I didn't, not that I wasn't in and out of different types of rehabs, the outpatients for, you know, DUIs and this stuff and that stuff when I was young, but I didn't necessarily need recovery to stop drinking or to stop numbing myself. It was more of dealing with the baggage and trauma type stuff from childhood and my early 20s, and kind of getting out of my own way and just being okay with myself and being okay with just being me.
Mm-hmm. So that's relatable because like I deal with I got a stutter. So when I looked up
Mm-hmm.
stuttering, like why people stutter stuff, that it always everything I read always led up to trauma. Some kind of
Right.
trauma happened when I was a kid that made me start stuttering. And I just like, and I always try to wonder like, what is that trauma? Like, I wasn't N word or nothing like that. I was never
Right.
touched by nobody when I was a kid or nothing like that. But like, but somehow I got traumatized to make me want to stutter. So maybe it was shyness. I was very shy as a kid. I was very violent as a kid, and because my violence as a kid, people didn't want to be around me, if that
Right.
makes sense. And I saw it, so I stopped. I stopped trying to be violent, you know, aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I became more humble. You know, and I'm not submissive, but like I let a lot of stuff go. And then like
more passive.
maybe the second or the third time somebody do something to me, then I'm gonna punch you in your face. But
Right.
but you know, but before that, I would instantly just punch you in your face, just to show dominance. And once I realized that, I graduated away from it. So by the time I was in like probably 10th grade, like I was like a totally different person, like totally like very shy. I didn't like people talking about me. It's like if I felt that if you was like talking about me, I would approach you, and you know, it became very difficult for me, and I had to reinvent myself several times to get to the person I am now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the trauma deal is kind of a weird thing too. Well, not weird, but the way that your brain reacts to trauma is, and your body, because, you know, like when I say trauma as a kid and this and that, it was like, I had an older brother that was a couple years older than me, and he just demanded attention, whether it was for good things or bad things, but he just demanded attention. And so I was kind of the middle child syndrome, the forgotten child, because I didn't demand a lot of attention. I was just kind of an easy kid to be around. But it also, that printed a lot of these, you know, self-worth things that came up later in life and all those things. But, you know, the more I started learning about trauma and this and that, is your body doesn't differentiate the difference, you know, whether it's, you know, physical, sexual, mental, you know, you can separate it and say, well, you know, I wasn't beaten as a kid, so my trauma is not as bad as so-and-so's, but your body and your brain doesn't differentiate it. And so the effects, or the, you know, whether it's a physical effect that comes out, you know, as far as, you know, a stutter or a limp, or, you know, the way that you carry yourself, or hunched over, you know, always balled up because you've been traumatized about, you know, getting hit or whatever the case may be. It's just your body and brain doesn't differentiate, doesn't have it on a scale of who, you know, comparing it to everybody else's.
Yeah, you're so right about that. I had I didn't really date her. We was just messing around, and she stayed with me for a while. She was living with a dude, and like one time, I don't know, I don't think we wasn't arguing or nothing like that. I think I moved my arm a certain way, and she like flinched. I was like, "What? You thought I was gonna hit you?" Like what's? I started laughing, and I realized, like, oh snap, like this dude really be beating on her like that. Cause she used to tell me about him like putting his hands on her, and I even heard her like on the phone once. But like she was like really like, I did do like this and like that, like fix something up, and she like flinched. I'm like, wait, you thought I was going, like, what's wrong with you? Like, and I realized I went out of town, and when I came back, she called me like, can I come to your house? I'm like, why? She's like, oh, he just attacked me, and it was another girl. That's another story too, because that's a girl I tried to talk to too, and she involved herself, and the girl didn't want to mess with me no more, and they became best friends. So weird story. Weird story. They became best friends, even though I tried to talk to both of them. And she's like, yeah, he attacked both of them inside the house. Then that she got in the cab and went home, and now she had nowhere to go. And I got off the airplane. I went straight to her and picked her up and took her to my house. But yeah, like you said, trauma, like you never, it follows you, and even though you're in a safe place, like a little memory, a little instinct would make somebody react negatively.
Well, and it's just, you know, you know, as far as the relationships and the dating and meeting new people, you know, like I'm more, you know, in the earlier stages, I'm more, you know, I tend to go a lot deeper. At surface level type conversations kind of get boring to me quick. But the easier I can figure out, you know, what baggage and trauma and stuff they're carrying, the easier it is to sort of navigate, to get to know the person better than they're going to want to show you because of their, you know, baggage and trauma and this and that. And so, but also it's hard, because if somebody's unwilling to face or deal with their trauma or baggage from past relationships, especially, you know, meeting somebody that's, you know, 35, 40 years old around my age, who's, you know, been married, has a couple kids, depending on how long they were married, you know, they got a lot of baggage from, you know, if they were married to an abusive guy for 15 years, I mean, that's 15 years of abuse, baggage and trauma that they are bringing with them, which isn't a huge deal breaker and it's not a big deal. But if they're unwilling to deal with that trauma and unwilling to face that trauma, it's hard to keep progressing forward, because I don't want to sit in jail for somebody else's crime. You know what I mean? I don't want, when I'm expressing, you know, if I'm trying to have an adult conversation or express my wants, needs, fears, or concerns, and you flip a switch into your trauma, and then it's gaslighting me or passive aggressive comments to me, or gets into this big blow up every time, like, because you're unwilling to sort of face your trauma and realize that every guy is not just attacking you, you know, or stuff like that. So it gets, you know, the dating world's a little bit different now than for me than it was in my, you know, 20s when I was 25. You know, you're dating women that have been dating and kind of going out for 3 or 4 years that don't have a lot of that baggage they're carrying around, that don't have a lot of the dating experience they're tagging around and dragging into the relationships or dating scene with you. You know what I mean?
Can you share some effective strategies for maintaining a healthy co-parenting relationship?
So the biggest thing I tell people that want their co-parenting relationship, or any, you know, any real relationship, but co-parenting especially, is I tell people, you got to leave your own pity party, right? And get out of your own way. Like, the relationship's gone, let it go, grieve it. You know what I mean? Like, but the holding on to the anger, or holding on to the animosity, and holding on to the guilt, or holding on to these emotional ties to that person as your ex instead of the other person's parent, it's harder to move forward when you're seeing them as your ex rather than your kid's parent. You know what I mean? But when you can, when you shift like that and you see them as a parent to your child rather than the person that cheated on you, or the person that was mean to you all the time, or divorced you, or took half your money, or, you know, whatever the case may be, things get a lot smoother. And then not engaging in the bad behaviors and the blow ups and the, you know, if you got somebody that you're dealing with that's real toxic all the time or real high conflict, you don't have to throw gas on the fire with them and engage in those behaviors, you know. Just because they want to argue doesn't mean that you have to.
Well, your thoughts on infidelity? Can a relationship recover from it?
I don't think so. Not really in my mind. I think it's always going to be something that sort of festers, and even if you try to get through it, I think it'll always kind of sit and fester. And it takes a lot of healing and a really big person to be able to let it go without it coming back up later. You know what I mean? Or seeing those signs even if they're not there. So trying to deal with that baggage and trauma would be hard, because if they're doing the same actions, you know, 10 years down the road, when you think it's all said and done with, if their mannerisms, the way that they're speaking, the way that they're moving, the way that they're going out and this and that is the same as it was when they were doing the infidelity type stuff, I mean, you're going to start, it's going to trigger you. I mean, there's no way it couldn't, you know. And plus, you know, if you're, you know, it's just the biggest breach of trust. And, you know, you give your all to somebody and you're in it together and all these things, like there's nothing, you know, are you gonna forgive a business partner that steals a bunch of money from your company and continue to do business with that person? No, right? Because you can't trust them, and you know that that's who they are, and that you can't be, you know, it's one of those deals of trust breaking that I just don't think you can redeem yourself for. Now, does that mean that person is the worst person on the planet and needs to be beaten down and needs to yada, yada, yada? No. But they didn't have that level of respect for you and your relationship. So I don't think there's a way to come back from it. I don't think I would be able to anyway.
Even if it's not physical? Like, say maybe they went on a date with somebody, or maybe they just, spent some time with somebody, but they didn't have sex with the person or nothing like that. Can that be recoverable?
I guess, I mean, there would have to be, the details would matter, I guess, for a lot of it. But, to me, I think the emotional part of it would be a bigger deal than the physical part of it. So like somebody actually putting in effort and like not being emotionally invested in the same way that I am, to entertain that kind of a situation or put themselves in that kind of a situation, or, you know what I mean? Like, would be harder for me to get over than if it was like a strictly physical thing where it just right place, right time, went to a wedding that I didn't go to and something had happened. You know what I mean? Like, but to go on a date, to be texting or talking and set something up to meet somebody and do all of these things, that's, you're talking about premeditated as compared to like,
yes,
accidentally hitting somebody with your car and having an accident. You know what I mean? Like, the two different scenarios for me, and the premeditated thing would be like, well, you got one foot out the door, so I'll help you with your bags and push your other foot too. Like, time to go. You know what I mean?
Yes. So would you be skeptical? Say a marriage been going on for 25 years, but 10 years in, something like that happens where both parties interacted with somebody that wasn't their husband or their wife, but they reached past it and they went on for another 15 years. Do you feel infidelity would be somewhere in between that 15 years and they're just not saying it?
Well, I think, if it happened at 10 years and they both sort of found out, it's going to cause the chain reaction to either, it kind of depends on where it goes after that, right? So one of two things is probably going to happen. Either it's going to be a thing that blows up, sort of shakes the whole foundation of the relationship, and then communication becomes the priority that it probably wasn't leading up to that point, where they're communicating their wants, needs, and everything else with each other. And if that is the fork they take in that road, then I think they could probably get past it, as long as they keep that open communication and are able to give pieces of themselves and give and take in the needs of the relationship for the other person, and really communicate what they want and what their goals are, and all of those things. And so I think you could on that end. But if it turned into the other fork where it sort of shakes everything up, but nobody wants to talk about it, and then there's less communication, or the communication, gets lower or stays the same as it is, then that's where you're going to find the pattern probably, and it's going to keep repeating itself, because they're not getting something in that relationship that they need or want, but they're not being able to either communicate it, or it's not being receptive and reciprocated by the other person.
That makes sense. You a Yankee fan?
Yeah.
Do you get a lot of flack for that in Tennessee?
Well, I live in a state where there's no team.
Oh, okay.
Well, I'm from Oregon.
Okay.
So the only sport Oregon has is basketball.
Oh, okay.
Well, and I guess soccer. Like, I guess that soccer team in Portland's like, but it's just the Trailblazers my whole life.
Okay.
The Mariners are the closest one for football or baseball, and the Seahawks, or San Francisco. But then, you can kind of root for whoever you want when there's no teams in your state. And then now I live in Montana, and there's no pro teams in Montana.
Oh,
so no,
wow.
nobody really gives me
So you live in 3 different states that don't have a team.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I actually work a couple of Yankee games, so I actually seen them for free and stuff like that. And I like soccer better. I think soccer games are better than baseball games for some reason.
I haven't been to a soccer game, but the one in Portland, Oregon, the Timbers, I guess, is
Mhm.
just I guess it's just a blast, like crazy good time.
It's like they got like a little, like it's minor league out here,
Mhm.
something bananas, stuff like that. They got different teams, and they were like pink uniforms and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I actually work those games too. Those games are pretty interesting. I like their costumes. I like their team jerseys and stuff like that. But like
Yeah,
soccer, like we working at soccer games, like amazing. Like they hold 2 different games, and you got to be real talented to play with that soccer ball. Like you're
yeah,
not just hitting the ball with a stick. You got to have some
yeah.
skills with your feet.
Well, and you got to be in shape. I mean, those guys are in the best shape of any
Yeah.
sport
Yes.
for the most part because they're just running the entire
Yeah.
time.
Straight talent. Straight talent.
Yeah.
Can you share a time when you struggled with feelings of jealousy or insecurities in a relationship?
Uh, it's pretty rare. I mean, with the with the one when I worked graveyard and stuff like that, like it was kind of one of those deals where we kind of drug on for a couple more years after that had happened. And so
Mm-hmm.
then it was always, but at the same time, I wasn't very good with communication and I wasn't very mature and neither was she. And then it became sort of toxic back and forth of just, we were in this situation, but the feelings weren't really there and this and that, but the jealousy would get there on both ends. And, until that kind of went away or that relationship was done, it was just sort of, we kind of drug that thing out for a while. But other than that, like, it's not really a deal that I struggle with because, if I'm in a relationship with you or if I'm with you and this and that, there's no real reason to get jealous because if they're going to cheat, they're going to cheat, whether
Mm-hmm.
you get jealous or not. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? And a lot of times you're projecting and jealousy for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
Not that it makes it condonable or acceptable, but if you're constantly accusing somebody of something and that they're not doing it, if, if they're going to be accused about it anyway, what's
Mm-hmm.
to stop them from just saying fuck you and doing it? You know what I mean? And just going to do
Mm-hmm.
it. If they're already going to have to get in the fight about it and have to, you know, sort of get the jail time for that crime, then why not just do it? But also it just becomes one of those situations where you're showing them that you don't trust them
Mm-hmm.
and you don't trust their decision making and maybe you don't trust the people that they're around,
Mm-hmm.
which is valid. But if you're, you know, every time they come home, you have this jealousy blow up on them or start accusing them of all these different things, you're not really condoning a healthy relationship by any means.
Yeah. Yes, I agree with you some things, but like you got those relationships where yes, you could accuse somebody and they're gonna be doing nothing, then yeah, they make this like Peaches Cole song, I should have cheated, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So no, you accuse me all the time. But you got cases where the person is actually cheating. Actually
Right.
cheated.
Right.
You kids can't prove it. I know a couple people where like they felt the person was cheating, the person said they wasn't, and somehow they get into their phone and
Mm-hmm.
they see messages. Like one time the person said the message said, when I take my kids to their grandparents, I'll come see you. And the guy was like, and the message said, I want to touch your skin again.
Yeah.
Another situation was a, a girl a girl was trying to hook a guy up with her friend, but she also was sleeping with the guy herself. you
Mm-hmm.
know, so I seen both sides of the situation, but most of the time, the person that probably understands is cheating. You just can't prove it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it's as everything keeps evolving and sort of changing a little bit, you know, especially over the last 10 years with the social media blowing up and becoming like a staple in everybody's lives and all of these different things. I feel like cases from men and women, but you know, women tend to have the more options, right? Mm-hmm. But like everybody's a placeholder for something better all the time, which is sort of seems to be where the direction of all dating is going. Mm-hmm. Everybody wants, you know, everybody's looking to something better than what they have, because you're seeing all of this on social media and all the pictures and all the postings and all the attention. You know what I mean? Like if I was to start dating somebody that was, you know, posting 20 pictures a day on Instagram and getting 1,000, 10,000 reactions and 500, you know, comments and all these things, like I will never meet that level of validation, no matter how much I worship that woman. I can never give her that same validation and attention that she can get on Instagram. And so like, you know, same with the, you know, it's the same on both sides, but I use a woman because it's just a little bit easier to grasp. But, and so like, sure, I'm dating her, but there's probably 50 guys trying to DM her every day. You know, and even on a small scale, you know, even if there's 5 guys a day DMing a chick that you're dating, you know, she has options. And if the dude's got a bigger house and a brand new car and stuff, you know, and so it gets a little bit hard to sort of navigate that, because people aren't, you know, plus with the instant gratification of everything that our society is sort of, you know, you want something to eat, DoorDash. You want something from Amazon, 2 days. You know, everything's here and now. And so people are less apt to go through a struggle. They'll jump to something else. You know what I mean? Or put in a little bit of work for something that's going to pay off dividends later on, you know, as far as a relationship. You know, if you can work on your relationship early and build a strong relationship, it's going to pay out dividends 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road when you're sitting on a cruise, you know, in the Caribbean. Or you can bounce from person to person to person to person to person and then end up, you know, 35, 40, 50 years old and alone, and then feel lonely with a bunch of baggage and a bunch of trauma. And now all of a sudden your options are limited because you're not, you know, 25, 30 years old getting 10,000 likes on Instagram anymore.
You mentioned betrayal in your early 20s. So how do you handle trust issues in your dating life after experiencing betrayal?
Well, I mean, I had to work through it, just like some of the stuff from my childhood. You know, like when I realized and went through some of the stuff, you know, with my thought process and my perspective and my mentality and all these different things that, like, you know, and just sort of got to the point where I just understood, you know, my parents did the best they could with the tools that they had at the time, raising us, and that's they did the best that they could. And we were young, not that the relationship was great. She did what she did. And it was more of a reflection of her. Once I started to kind of piece it together and dissect it and figure out all these things, that it was more of a reflection of her, the way she was raised and the way that her self-worth was attached to what she could get and all these different things, and had nothing to really do with me. Then the you know, I'm not saying it still didn't hurt or anything like that, but it didn't really create a lot of trust issues because I wasn't projecting her onto every other person that I met. You know what I mean? I got to where I was pretty good about giving everybody a clean slate when I'd start dating them.
What are your views on the red pill community and its impact on modern dating?
I mean, I'd be lying if I said I didn't laugh at some of the videos that I see pop up and stuff like that. But like, think it's a lot healthier to live in reality. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so the delusion that a lot of these scenario that sort of I see, you know, through the online and videos and this and that, like a lot of people are trying to live in this delusional, I'm a 10. You know what I mean? Like there's nobody on the planet that's a 10, because that would mean that there was an actual perfection in something, and that's just not the case. But like I'm all for people being put in check. You know what I mean? Like if you're the best soccer player in your school, in high school, or even in the state that you know, say you're the best soccer player in that entire state, and they offer you a league minimum contract to go play in the European Soccer League, right? The Premier League, something. And if you sit there and think that you should be paid $30 million because you're the best player in your state, you're getting that reality check that you need, because when you get over there, you're going to realize that you are only worth that league minimum, probably, because them guys are, you know, 28-year-old top of the game, you know. And so that reality check, it works really well in sports. You know what I mean? You might be the best second baseman in all of college baseball, but that doesn't mean you're walking straight onto the Dodgers or the Yankees, because you would be a maybe average AAA second baseman. You know what I mean? And so like that's that reality check. And I think reality checks are good like that. You know, if you get too wild on your, too big for your britches when you're running, you know, your business, other businesses, you know, the market's going to check you. You know what I mean? And so you may be doing well in a certain areas of your life, but if you go to the dealership and try to buy a Bentley and your credit score is 400, they're going to reality check you and you ain't getting it. You know what I mean? And so I think the red pill thing is when it's done as a reality check, I think it's beneficial for people to live in reality. But you know, you also do see some of those ones where they sort of intentionally put people in scenarios just to embarrass them or to make a video, which is not necessarily my favorite, but I think it's needed. I think especially from the women's standpoint, where they all think they're a 10 when they're average women or even below average women, to have this mindset that they're settling for average men or men that are maybe just a hair above average, because they all want this 1% guy that may or may not even exist in their, you know, reality. But until you get them to live in reality, you have, you know, the mass majority of women chasing, you know, 1,000 to 5,000 guys that live in our entire country.
And you know, you make a great point. You make a great point when you said reality checks and stuff like that. You mentioned like girls that want the rich guy,
right?
You know, 6 figures, you know, 7 figures, you know, tall, such a, and
right.
And like you said, you need a reality check. And I think the perfect reality check for these type of women is Cassie Ventura. I think that's her name, her last name, Ventura. You know what I'm talking about? So you familiar with the Diddy video that came out recently?
I don't watch a ton of videos, but I'll look it up. I'll definitely look up. Like I see a lot of it on like I see a lot of Kevin James shorts.
Okay.
And Fresh and Fit pops up on my deal a lot.
Okay. So you're not familiar with what's going on with Diddy and Drake right now? The rappers?
I know that Diddy got raided, and that's about I
All right.
I know that he's in a shitstorm, but other than that.
Okay. So basically a video was released by CNN of him actually beating on Cassie. So he in a hotel room, you know, with nothing but a towel, and he's beating on her, kicking
Yeah.
her, and so on and so on. And that's why I said that's the reality check. Yes, you want the guy that's rich, but make it this type of guy that's rich. The guy that's gonna
Right.
beat you up behind closed doors
Right.
and get away with it for years. Because he been rich. He been rich since he was like 18. So he been rich for about 20, 30 years right now. So
Right.
imagine the 30 years of him having that money, doing whatever
Right.
he want, whatever he want, whatever he want. And it took her, this one female, to destroy his whole career by
Right.
exposing what he even done. And
Right.
like I said, she sued him months ago. But see, it took CNN months to get that tape to
Right.
expose him. So if she's telling the truth about this situation, imagine what else she's telling the truth about.
Right. Well, and you got the way that, sadly, the way that the justice system is set up in the United States is if you can afford it, you can buy yourself out of any trouble that more or less you get into, unless you become, unless it's something like, you know, an Epstein Island, a P. Diddy, a, you know, Aaron Hernandez, you know what I mean? If you have the money, you know, unless it escalates, you know, but I mean, think about all the things these guys were doing before that point, you know what I mean? Because they just keep pushing, you know what I mean? It might have started with a backhand to an old lady when they were 25 years old, and then, oh, I'll buy her a diamond ring the next day and she'll, you know, no big deal. And then it escalates to something else, and then it escalates to something else, and then it escalates to something else, and then you're in trouble and you can't buy your way out. But yeah, you want the guy with money, but the guy with money can do
whatever you want.
Money is power, and you know, the perception of power is that you can do whatever you want, and that tends to be the case. That they're gonna do whatever they want. I mean, look at the wide receiver for the Dolphins. He had 4 kids this year. 1 with his wife, 3 with other women. You know what I mean? You want the guy with status. You want the guy with money. Well, if he's traveling, you know what I mean? Like, you might end up having to deal with 4 baby mamas that have kids all the same age as yours, you know? But at the same time, you know, the sad thing about football players is most of them end up broke 2 or 3 years after they get out of the league because, you know, you can't pay $300 a year or $300,000, $500,000 a year in child support to 15 kids and expect to keep wealth.
Yes,
You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Yes, you got a drinking habit, you got a smoking habit, you got a partying habit. You know, yes, can't.
But I mean, as far as the, you know, the red pill dating, you know, if a woman's pretty and she can attain certain types of guys, or you know, has things going for herself, but like, so outside of that aspect of it, like some of these other perceptions or mentalities that seem to pop up in these dating things, like women that get out of high school, go to college because everybody tells them to go to college, work on your career till you're 26, 27, 28 years old. When your end goal is to be a mother and a housewife, you know, be married by 30, have 2 kids, and then be a housewife and a mother. Like, why the fuck did you waste all that money and time to build a career that you're just going to throw in the garbage? You know what I mean? Because going to college ain't cheap. Like, why did you go to college and want this career just to throw it in the garbage when you're 31 years old and have a second kid? You know what I mean? Like, that just seems like, it just seems like a waste. Like, who of high value wastes 10 years of their life and spends that kind of money, and then obviously whoever they marry has to take on that student debt, because that's now becomes your bill that is guaranteed every month. Like, people, you know, like that doesn't scream high value woman or like good decision making person. You know what I mean?
You're so right about that. I know a lot of females and men too that got degrees, master degrees, bachelor degrees, and they either don't have a job at all or they got a job at something like McDonald's or something like that. I had a manager once, and she said something to me, and I'm like, you went to school for this, not me. or something like that. And she's like, I didn't go to school for this. I went to school, and she said something crazy like I went to law school or something like that. So wait, you got a law degree, but yet you're a manager in a college, you know, checking to see is people cleaned up properly or not. Like that's mind blowing for me. Like,
yeah. And I mean, it's getting to the point, you know, little by little with the different industries and the different, you know, I didn't go to college.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know what I wanted to do, was not going to waste a bunch of money to do this. You know, I could go to work and party, or I could go pay and be in massive debt, go to college and party. You know what I mean? Like I'll make money and party and live on my own rather than pay a bunch of money for a college degree I'm probably never going to use. But I work in the trades. And so, you know, most of the people that live in this area around me either work in the oil fields, which pays, you know, those guys, when they get done working their careers in the oil fields, they've made more money than doctors by a long shot. And they don't have any student debt. You know, the guys out here that are welders and those kinds of things. I mean, you're talking about, they're making $100, $150 an hour welding. Whereas your sociology degree or women's studies degree or all these different degrees where you're the only job that you're getting out of, you know, using that degree is just being another college professor at some other college. Because like, what do you know, what does sociology have? What's the job connected to a sociology degree that you just paid 80 grand for?
Yeah, you're so right about that. I interviewed a psychologist one time, and you know, interview was good. She was a drug addict. I'm in Florida. Then she got herself clean, became a doctor, became a psychologist. She live in Europe right now. I think she live in Budapest or something like that.
Yeah.
And so one day, like probably 2 weeks ago, I go on Facebook and I see a video of her. You know, so you know, I support everybody I do a podcast with. Anybody I do my interview, I make sure I support them like anything. If I don't read it, I just like it, you know, just to show that support. And so I'm watching the video and she showed a titty. I'm like, wait, she got OnlyFans? So I checks and she got OnlyFans. You know, so now she got posts they say like Dr. Bade dominations at night. You know, like your psychology degree, and you live in Budapest, so you gotta have some kind of money. So do you really gotta sell your body to get this? You know, so I tried to get an interview with her, but she keep giving me a runaround. She would say, okay, next week, and then never happened. So now I just, you know, put on my archive, you know, so I don't pay attention.
Well, you know, I see those OnlyFans, you know, the red pill OnlyFans videos and this and that, you know, mostly, you know, I think there's a couple different podcast, like video deals I'll catch all the time. And I can't watch like the whole podcast or the whole episodes of these things because I just mentally can't. You can't sit through that much. But like, they always say how much that they, you know, everybody talks about how much these accounts and these profiles and these things make a month, but nobody ever says how much they keep a month. You know what I mean? Like, sure, you made 25K last month with your OF page or account or whatever it is. But like, if you live in Miami, New York, Vegas, LA, and you're doing these things, like, well, there's 10 grand, you know, and to live, bam. You got a car, bam. You probably have other people on the payroll that you're paying, bam, bam. You're probably paying your family's bills, bang, bang, bang. So like, maybe you're pocketing at the end of every month, like $1,000, $1,500. Well, I'd make double the money you do then, because I'm not paying everything I make out in bills. You know what I mean? Just throwing it all out the window. Like, if you're not building anything and investing and generating any of this wealth, like, that's the red pill I'd like to see. Is like, you've been doing, you know, some of them chicks been doing it for like a couple, 2-3 years, and you've made $1.1 million and you have $10,000 in your bank account. Like, what'd you do with all that money? You know what I mean? Like, you were not somebody I want to be around, because I'm not really looking for somebody that's going to take all my money and throw it out a moving car window.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yes, you're so right about that. I seen a post where Black China, something ridiculous amount of money, like probably $50 million a month or something like that, of OF. And so I'm Googled it, you know, I'm looking around. I'm like, if she make that kind of money, like she should be a billionaire by now. Especially if she's been
Right.
doing a month, like add that
Right.
up. Like you making about a half a billion a year, you know? So I looked it up. She says that's not true that she's not making that kind of money. She says most likely she said she got only like 2 million out of that.
Mhm.
So like where the other 60 million went, you know?
Right.
So
Well, I
like
mean, I'd seen a deal, and so like in my world and my realm of thinking, you know, when it gets brought up or popped up, you know what I mean? Like my initial like trigger of it or thought of it is you're deceitful, right? Like if a chick tells me that she does that, I'm like instantly I'm like you just, it comes off to me as deceitful because you're baiting people into paying you when you're not really interested in those people, right? Just the way they talk to you and da 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 da. But also, I'd seen a deal where, you know, there's a fair amount, if not the majority of those girls that do that, that aren't even in control of their own accounts. So they get flown out, do this photo shoot. Somebody else is doing all the messaging for them and this and that and this and that and everything else. And like, they just make a percentage off whatever those other guys can put together, you know?
yes, you're so right about that. I'm sorry, I was looking it up. So it says $20 million. She made $20 million a month off OnlyFans since 2021. So that's roughly $240 million a year. They're saying
Right.
she make a year. But she's
Right.
saying she only got 307,000 from that. So where the means went, you only got
Right.
307,000. Where the means went. But I'm gonna move
Well, I
on.
mean,
But
you get flown out. Say like a chick starts one in the Midwest somewhere, gets linked in with some guys in Miami, and she gets flown out. Well, deduct your plane ticket, deduct your photo shoot, mark up the da da da, $10,000 a month for rent. Oh, we're gonna get you into all these clubs and stuff, but we're gonna pay you the promoter. We're gonna charge you the promoter fee to get you, you know, on these lists and be on these yachts and do these things, promote you, da 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 da. I mean, but look at, you know, look at TLC when they were huge with their albums. You know what I mean? Like they were, by the time that it was all said and done, they were in debt by the time they'd paid everybody for their first few albums, even knowing that they were #1 albums. So the more hands you get in the jar, the less you're bringing home, I guess.
Yes. And 9 to 10 women with OnlyFans would never find love. And if they do, it gotta be somebody with their own world. So it gotta be a guy with OnlyFans or OF or a porn star for them to either be equal to each other. Because a guy that don't encourage that, he would never marry nobody like that. But I'm gonna move on. Have you ever cheated on a partner? If so, what led to it, and how did you feel afterwards?
I haven't. Not that I remember. I mean, maybe in high school on a high school girlfriend kind of deal, but I'm either all in or not at all. Like I don't play the middle game very much. And so like if I even think that I'm going to entertain somebody else or would even start entertaining other people, then I've moved on and it's just time to clean break that relationship. But that goes along with being okay being alone and not needing that attachment, whether it's real or, you know what I mean? I'm also not one of those people that relationship jumps. Like as soon as one ends, I gotta hurry up and get in another relationship or start dating somebody or have one on the hook or one on the line before, you know, because I can't stand to be alone. I'm just not that kind of person.
Yeah, me either. That makes sense. What's your opinion on the concept of soulmates? Do you believe in it?
I don't not believe in it. We'll say it that way. Like it's not. I've met people who you could tell were on another level, even just on another level from people who have really good relationships. But it's kind of like know, it's not something that I've experienced personally, but I can't sit here and disregard it, like say it doesn't exist when I haven't, just because I haven't experienced it.
Mm-hmm.
But you can, you know, so yeah, I believe in it, sure. And it, you know, I think about it as a different kind of level. I don't think it's like all rainbows and unicorns because you found that person. I think that there's still, I think it's still takes a massive amount of open communication and work to make any relationship be as strong and as fruitful as it possibly can be. But I think in those instances, the communication and those bonds are just so much more fluid and so much easier and just so much more fulfilling to those people. You know what I mean? You're not having to try to change anything about the other person or change something about yourself to appease the other person. Everything just clicks and just goes full steam ahead.
Yes. So right about that. How do you define loyalty in a relationship, and where do you draw the line?
Loyalty,
Yes.
support, empathy, understanding, and, you know, those core values and morals that kind of keep everything operating. But also trust, compassion plays into it. You know, if somebody's, you know, if you're in a traditional relationship, which is, you know, more times than not sort of the area that I live in, you know, a woman being feminine and a man being masculine, and a woman supporting, knowing, and allowing the man to sort of guide and make and be a leader and make decisions. Maybe they don't all pan out, but being loyal isn't looking for something or even entertaining the idea. It's still pushing forward with that person to keep growing and building, rather than I told you so, you know what I mean? Or, you know, but also respect plays a huge part of it, because if you have somebody's loyalty or they have your loyalty, you'll never talk shit about them to anybody, whether they're around or not, even if as a joke, because you're loyal to that person and that the unit that you two are. So like in my way, loyalty, you know what I mean, is if I was to put the other person down, talk shit or anything like that, or nag that person or do something that was betraying to that person, then I would be betraying our unit as a core. You know what I mean? So I'm essentially not even being loyal to myself, because I'm not all in on this relationship.
That makes sense. What do you think about open relationships and poly relationships? Have you ever considered it?
I haven't. But I've seen it work for some people, and it's not necessarily, you know, my ambitions or my goals as far as a relationship, you know, and you know, I'm not going to kink shame other people if that's what they're into and that's the lifestyle that they have. But one thing I have experienced and viewed over the, you know, the years is some of those types of relationships, because there's so much open communication. Now it in a lifestyle type relationship, I've noticed that there's so much communication between boundaries, needs, wants, limits, and all of these things, that those relationships seem to be really strong. Now, if it's a one-sided open relationship where the woman or the man gets to sleep around and the other one is not allowed to, and it's more of a controlling dynamic like that, then it's probably going to be more detrimental than anything. But not my cup of tea. You know what I mean? Like I'm not not really wanting to share or be shared for the most part.
Okay. What's the most toxic relationship you ever been in, and what did you learn from it?
Probably the one where she cheated, and it was toxic because I was toxic and she was toxic. And after she cheated, then a fight ensued with that person that she cheated with. Then there becomes some court issues that followed me around for a few years after that. And then, there was a lot of things that all stacked and kind of different avenues that were all going on at one time, putting a lot of pressure on both of us to try to sort this thing out and not, you know, in my case, it was try not to make waves and end up getting burnt by her in the system and that kind of stuff. But that was probably the most toxic one. And it was, you know, all around toxic, but it wasn't, you know, that bled into my friendships and relationships with everybody. You know, I got sort of isolated and a lot of stuff like that. But the most important thing I probably learned was no matter how hard and how tight you try to hold on to something or pretend something is a certain way, you can't control how other people act and how other people feel. And when it's real, it's going to be reciprocated towards you in a real, authentic way, more so than living in a place of fear, hoping that they don't leave or hoping that they don't do it again, or hoping that this time when they say that they love you and they would never do something like that, that they'll actually not do something like that. You know what I mean?
What are some red flags you ignored in past relationships that you would ignore now?
I've ignored, like, if I put in a certain level, like one big one that I used to ignore all the time or sort of disregard, even knowing it would set off alarms for me early in relationships. If somebody wasn't matching the effort that I was putting in, right? And so whether it be time, you know, physical time together or little things, if they weren't matching my effort or at least interest, that's kind of a flag for me. Because, you know, like, and to an extent, you know, people are busy and this and that and da 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 da. But if you start dating somebody and it's always all about them and they never ask you how your day is or never ask you, you know, what you want to do this weekend, or if something is important to you, they kind of brush it off and don't show up or don't bring it up, or, you know, if I got a deal where I'm going to be around the people that I work with and the people that are important to me in my life, and you show up like you just rolled out of bed, but when we're going to where your friends and family are, I have to wear, like, you know, we'll say not a suit, but, you know,
casual,
more than casual clothing.
Yeah.
You're like, you know, I have to get dressed up and stuff, but you show up like in the same shit you were wearing the night before when you're around my people. Like, those little things show the level of respect that somebody has for you, you know? And so, like, those little flags. But even on a very, very basic level, you know, if somebody has to have their phone underneath their, you know, if they always have their phone turned over, you know what I mean? Or it's always locked. Like, I'm not going to go through your phone and stuff, but if you're at my house and it's in your hand the entire time, or it has to, you know what I mean? You can't leave it sitting on the coffee table, because what if a text comes through or something like that? Like, that's going to be a red flag. Because why, you know, my phone half the time is just sitting on the table. I don't even, you know, but those little things like that. If you get more dressed up to go out with your friends than you do to go on date night with me, then you're looking for, you know what I mean? Like, there could be different reasons why these things happen, but they're things that make me pause and just kind of like, what's the reasoning for that? Like, if I'm the most important person in your life, why wouldn't you get more dressed up for me than strangers? You know?
I wasn't dating this girl. I just like started talking to her, and she called me for money one day. She's like, "Hey, you got a couple of dollars?" Such, such, such. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm cool. I'm freaking next door." You know that. So I goes next door to give it to her, and she got a backpack, like underwear, and this and that. I was like, "Oh, you one of these? All right." She's like, "Yeah, please, I need the money, such and such and such and such." I think I give like $5.
Right.
I was gonna give like probably like $100 or something like that. You know,
Right.
what she told me she needed it for. But I'm like, oh, all right, yeah. So I gave her the money and I walked out. And then I guess she realized what I gave her. And she started texting like, hey, I thought you told me I'm not going to see nobody. I'm like, you good? Like, we not dating or nothing like that. I said, but I'm not gonna be your simp or your bank. You know?
Right. I'm not financing you to go
yeah,
do
like
something else. Right.
You good? But here go this $5. You know, and have fun. you know, yeah. But I just did this. I just did this to play a trick on her. You know, just to like, yeah, here, take this. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, you know. And she made me look like real stupid afterwards. But you got any last words?
Not that I could think of. I had fun. This was great.
Yeah, no, it was definitely fun. You know, I got way more questions. But I got another interview in like 10 minutes.
Oh, no worries.
Yes. So maybe you could do like a part 2 one day and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you know?
for sure.
And if you got a podcast, just send me a link of a schedule, and I definitely will come and join you.
Yeah.
Show you that
for
support.
Sure. Awesome.
Right? Thank you for joining us on the Relationship Convo podcast with my special guest, JP Marsh. And I really appreciate you, sir, for joining me. Thank you.
It was a great honor. Thanks, man.
All right. Have a good one. Bye.
You too. Bye.